Ho, 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 gentlemen. The holidays have come early this year as Manscaped have the gift that keeps on trimming. Santa's beard isn't so appealing when it's coming out of your trousers, and that's why Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, have you covered this holiday season. Now available in your country, join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped to keep their trees trimmed and ornaments polished. Go to manscaped.com and use code DTR for 20% off plus free shipping.
Stafford under pressure, and a tuck it, and he's in! Darrell Henderson, he's off and running! As Woods, touchdown! Cooper Kupp just went up and took it away.
Van Jefferson for the touchdown.
Aaron Donald smothers him. Jalen Ramsey with the pop-up. Sacked by Leonard Floyd, having a day again.
Darius Williams with a diving hit. Jordan Fuller comes up with his second interception of the night.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you a few days before our Los Angeles Rams take on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, coming off of their win against the Seattle Seahawks. And guys, I'm going to apologize in advance. I am traveling for the holidays, so I don't have my typical setup, so I might not sound as good as I normally sound, we can say. So I apologize in advance if the quality on my end is not as good as normal. But Jake, aside from that, going into this game against the Minnesota Vikings, the Rams had a very good game against the Seahawks, played very well, quenched a lot of Rams fans' fears for the most part. But Jake, what do you think the number one thing the Rams need to prepare for is going against the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, I think right off the bat, you have to make sure that a certain someone doesn't take over the game. And I'm not talking about just one person. I think when you look at, the season that Dalvin Cook has put together, despite dealing with injury practically the whole year, running over 200 yards against that Pittsburgh defense, despite having a shoulder harness on, and Justin Jefferson, what he's doing, whether Adam Thielen is there or not, he has just absolutely stepped up his game this year in year two. He's second in the league in receiving behind our own Cooper Kupp, but those are definitely the two players that I'm watching. Eric Kendricks, of course, is another one on the defensive side of the ball, as well as Harrison Smith. So they're definitely guys. Daniel Hunter as well. The Vikings, they have guys that can break the game open. Rams are going to have to be very careful because they've done some major things against the run. They've stopped the run. It looked at the beginning of the game against Seattle, I'm sure people were a little worried when Rashad Penny broke, 1 to 2 runs, past the first down marker. But after that, they really shored up their run defense. And that's pretty much what they do. They give up a few big plays. Everyone starts talking about how they can't stop the run. And then they get, their proverbial crap together. Now, here's the thing. With Dalvin Cook, if you don't get it together, he's somebody, when he gets to the second level, he's built to take on the punishment that a safety or any of the DBs will give him. So when he gets to the second level, he's just about as built to take on that punishment as any running back in the league. He's a power runner, but he's also very fast. So, this is definitely a running back you can't sleep on. And for, looking at Justin Jefferson, like I said, if Adam Thielen plays, it's going to help him out. But Justin Jefferson can be the number one guy and can be double teamed and can still make things happen. He's so explosive. And, he's so physical at the point of attack. When, looking at the highest point of the football, he's going to go up and make that play. Just a great route runner and somebody that's getting better each week, which is scary. So he's another guy where if you need a big play, you can cash in. Last week, we do know, or rather this week, wasn't that long ago on Monday Night Football, Minnesota won against Chicago, but they did not play well. Kirk Cousins only completed 11 passes in that game. I would imagine that they're, going to be out to kind of prove themselves this week. Despite winning against Chicago, there's no way they're going to be okay with that win. And they have to win because if they want to stay in this, tight NFC playoff race, they pretty much have to win out the rest of the year. So, we'll see. But there's a lot at stake here for the Minnesota Vikings. They're not going to lay down in this one.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about Dalvin Cook. To me, Dalvin Cook is the number one threat to our defense this week and to every defense that he plays. Like you mentioned, he's been very successful, even though he's been battling injuries. He's definitely someone to look out for, especially if we're running a bend, don't break defense. It might be a little risky to even bend with him because, you know, he's going to just keep going the whole game. He's a high motor. He's going to punish the defense, and it's going to be very difficult to slow him down, regardless of what defensive scheme you play, but especially with the way that the Rams have been playing. You mentioned Justin Jefferson, obviously a very good receiver, Adam Thielen. But something that I think is kind of interesting is that the Vikings offensive line, when I look at their offensive line, they're actually not that bad. They have a rookie Christian Darrisaw as their left tackle. They have Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, Brian O'Neill, and at guard right now, his last name's Udo. I haven't watched enough of them to know if he's been starting or if he's been rotating with Wyatt Davis at guard. And Wyatt Davis was a rookie drafted in the 3rd round this year out of Ohio State, a very talented player. So I'm going to be very curious to see how the Vikings offensive line deals with the Rams defensive front and our linebacking core, because, you know, as we saw against the Seahawks, you know, Von Miller, guys like Justin Hollins, Aaron Donald, we've been attacking those offensive lines. So I hope that we can continue to do so. I truthfully have no idea how the Vikings offensive line is going to hold up against us. But Jake, looking at the Minnesota defense, in my opinion, the Minnesota defense is the biggest weakness on their team because when I look at their defense, it's really weird. They have some guys who are either really good, they have guys who are not very good, and then they have guys that like used to be good but just aren't really playing well anymore. On paper, they're built to be good. You know, when you look at their linebacking core, you look at Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, who in the day, very good duo, haven't done as much this year, but they've been consistent, I guess you could say. Obviously, to me, the star of their defense, I think, is Harrison Smith, their strong safety. Corner, they've got Patrick Peterson. They've kind of had some issues at corner. Now they've got Cameron Dantzler, who is playing pretty well from what I've seen at the corner position.
We have breaking news on the podcast. Dalvin Cook has been placed on COVID reserve list.
Wow.
So that, I mean, I had to stop you because we were just talking about how massive he is for this team. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Alexander Mattison has had to take over at times this year, and he has succeeded. And he's a very good backup. But not having Dalvin Cook against one of the best teams in the NFL, I don't know about that one, Chief. That is going to be, I feel for them. I hate it. Obviously, you never want to see anybody get COVID, and you never want to see, like you are kind of like me. I mean, I don't want any excuses. I don't want the Rams to play a team that's not at full strength. Not to say the Rams are going to be at full strength 100% either, but I hate to see it. So personally, I'm kind of bummed because I would have liked to see Dalvin Cook go up against this defense. Would have been a nice barometer. I think they're doing a great job, but they haven't faced a running back like Cook seemingly all year. I mean, unless you can think of somebody. I mean, Jonathan Taylor early on in the season wasn't Jonathan Taylor right now. So, that's
for sure.
Massive.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook would have been the most talented running back we've seen, like on another level, I think, this season. And like you said, that's obviously really terrible, for him and his team. And obviously, anytime anybody gets COVID, you just wish them the best. You don't ever want to see that happen to anybody, even from a game, an opponent's perspective. However, as you said, this does, as bad as it sounds, it helps out the Rams, and it helps our chances at dominating this Minnesota offense, because Dalvin Cook is the heart of their offense, in my opinion. So without him, that could essentially, in some ways, change the way that the Rams approach the Minnesota Vikings. For one, they're not going to have to be as worried about the run game. I know that, Minnesota has Alexander Mattison, Wayne Gallman. And then I think they have a rookie. His name is slipping my mind, but, obviously nowhere near the talent of Dalvin Cook. So that is going to change, I think, the defensive approach, maybe give them a little bit of a sigh of relief. But of course you have to, prepare for everything. But wow. Okay. That was breaking news. Back to the Minnesota defense. I think I left off talking about Harrison Smith. That's right. Harrison Smith, their safety, to me is a star. And then we kind of talked about their corner position, which is kind of shaky. They have guys like Dalvin Tomlinson and Sheldon Richardson up front, who I like. They're nowhere near, I would say, maybe the most talented defensive tackles that the Rams have gone against this season. However, you obviously, if you're, the Rams offensive line, they're definitely people to watch out for. Jake, what do you think the Rams strategy should be attacking this Minnesota Vikings defense? Because as I've mentioned, their secondary, it's okay, but it's not the best in the league. Do you think that the Rams are going to throw the ball a lot against Minnesota?
Yeah, I do. Looking at this defense, they've really struggled this year. They give up more fantasy points to quarterbacks, or more fantasy points to wide receivers than any defense in the entire league. Not even close. So there is a huge opportunity for a guy that is chasing Calvin Johnson's record in Cooper Kupp to potentially go over 200 yards in this game. There's a lot of opportunity to get Van Jefferson back into the fray after he had a little bit of a down week. There's a lot of opportunity to get Odell into the triple-digit section of wide receiver receiving yards. He hasn't done that all season. There's just a lot of opportunity here. And, I think, obviously, the Rams aren't just going to veer away from what's working right now. They're not going to stop running the football, and you and I don't want them to stop running the football. I want them to be a play-action passing attack that is built off the run, But at the same time, could we see a ton of 11 personnel? Could we see a ton of empty formations and just having, Stafford play backyard football thrown from that pocket? Absolutely. Because, this is a game that, they need to win. They need to pretty much win out if they want to get that number one seed, have any shot of that, and win the division. But when you look at, what the Rams are dealing with here, Minnesota's defense is just not very good. They have some players like you've mentioned, but I would just, put it this way. They're 24th, as far as giving up points to, fantasy points to running back, they're 24th. They're 32nd in the league in receivers, like I mentioned, 28th to quarterback. So they really can get beat all over the field. They kind of, honestly, like I was saying, they beat the Bears, but that wasn't really a convincing win. And I would argue that Justin Fields very clearly outplayed Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football. But when you go through, their season, they gave up 28 points after dominating the game to start against Pittsburgh at home. They gave up, almost the game at the end to Pittsburgh. They lost to the Lions in the final seconds. They gave up 34 to the Niners. They gave up 31 to the Packers, and that was when they were at full strength with their offense, which they won't be. They were able to beat the Packers at home. Then they beat the Chargers. They gave up 34 to the Ravens, a team that struggled getting over 18 points pretty much the rest of the year since. They lost to the Cowboys. They gave up 28 to the Panthers in overtime. They almost lost to the Lions the first time that they played in Minnesota. So this is a team that really, they gave up 34 to the Cardinals, lost in the final seconds. This is a team that has just given up a lot of points this year. And they've given up a lot of, big games for players. We're talking about Kyler Murray throwing 400 yards. He normally doesn't do that. He threw 400 yards. Rondale Moore had a 100-yard game in only week 2 of the season against Minnesota. Jamar Chase had a 100-yard game in his first game in the NFL. Mixon ran for 120 in that game. There's just plenty of guys like Metcalf has struggled this year, but Metcalf had a 100-yard game against them. Nick Chubb ran for over 100 yards. It's just they've had these games where they've like given up big type of offensive performances to players. They gave up 325 yards and lost to Cooper Rush with the Dallas Cowboys. Let's not forget that. So I would say, and really anything is in play when you're dealing with a team that just simply gives up a ton of points and a ton of yards to no matter who is lined up. I mean, that's the big thing there. Everybody is trying to cash in on the next best crypto, but if you want guaranteed way to double your money, all you got to do is head on over to MyBookie and use promo code JKDTR. It's simple. Sign up with MyBookie with promo code JKDTR, and your first deposit is instantly doubled all the way up to $1,000. How's that for a quick turnaround in your investment? With the NFL playoff race heating up and college bowl season just around the corner, double your firepower at MyBookie to get action in on the most important games of the season. Build your own props, create multi-game parlays, and take part in a host of MyBookie cash prize contests. This is the best time of year to both watch and bet on sports because you know who the winners are by now. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit by using promo code JKDTR and keep your eyes peeled for more exclusive holiday promotions coming soon at mybookie.ag. Bet anything, bet anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
Girls, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of finding a bush when I go down in my man's chimney. Dear Santa, all I want this holiday season is for my man to have smooth jingle balls. Thankfully, Manscaped answered with the Performance Package 4.0, so I don't have to find Santa's beard in my man's pants again. Ladies, this holiday season, get your man products that will leave him smelling fresh with their all-new ultra-premium body wash and a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give the man in your life the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use code DTR for 20% off plus free shipping. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that if the Rams can play as well as they have been, they should have no problem scoring against this Minnesota Vikings defense. And you bring up a good point about the division, because something I wanted to bring up here is that, so we obviously play the Vikings this week. Arizona plays the Colts. Now, the Colts are actually a very good football team. I know that they're 8-6 and the Cardinals are 10-4. However, that game is actually Saturday night, 8:15 Eastern. And I would not be surprised at all to see Indianapolis win that game. I think that Indianapolis has been playing very well. I think they obviously have Jonathan Taylor. I think their defense has stepped up. So it's going to be interesting because if the Cardinals lose against the Colts and we win against the Vikings, we are then on top of the division. The week after the Cardinals play the Colts, they play the Dallas Cowboys, which is another team that has been playing very well. So that's another opportunity for the Cardinals to lose. So, the Cardinals don't have an easy 2 games coming up, in my opinion, against the Colts and the Cowboys. They finish out the season against the Seahawks, and I do expect them to probably beat the Seahawks in that game. However, that could end up having major implications the last week when they play the Seahawks and we play the 49ers. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Obviously, if you're a Rams fan, I would probably try to keep a close eye on the Cardinals score on Saturday night if you're able to watch the game or just keep up with the score at all, because that's going to be really interesting. And that's why it's so important that we can capitalize against the Minnesota Vikings and win this week, because we have an opportunity to take the division.
No, I 100% agree with you. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The Rams have a golden opportunity to take over because the Cardinals are going against the Colts, and I mean, I've said this multiple times and I'll say it again. The Rams fans and the Rams are going to be in a weird predicament where they're going to want the Cardinals to win if the Cardinals lose to the Colts, because the Cowboys then become a bigger threat as far as seeding is concerned. But that doesn't matter if you can't take care of business. The Rams, after losing literally the last 5 meetings against Minnesota, they beat Minnesota in 2018, 38-31 in a game where, Jared Goff literally looked perfection. I mean, he was just unbelievable at the Coliseum. But the year prior, under Sean McVay, he did lose to Mike Zimmer early on in his coaching career, 24-7. That was unfortunately the game with Robert Woods getting the shoulder injury. The Rams are 27-17-2 in the series all time. They're 25-12-2 in the postseason, or in the regular season, and 2-5 in the postseason. Kind of looking at this, like coming in, Aaron Donald has 2.5 sacks against Kirk Cousins in his career. He only has more sacks against 9 other quarterbacks in his career. Matthew Stafford is also 74 career regular season passing yards away from moving into 12th all time on that list, which would be accompanied by Warren Moon. The Rams offense has created 10 plays of 50 plus yards this season. They are the only team that has more than 7 through week 15. And Cooper Kupp needs 268 yards to break the NFL record for receiving yards through 15 games, which would put him in prime position to pass Calvin Johnson in week 17, which, Alexis, that I think would mean there'd be no excuses. Nothing about the, he played an extra game. I would absolutely love to see Kupp break Calvin Johnson's record in week 16 because, I wouldn't want the excuses, but regardless, I mean, this guy has a chance at over 2,000 yards. I mean, he is 375 yards away from hitting the 2,000 mark. Quite the season.
Yeah. Insane. I mean, and I'm sure that he's aware. I'm sure that Stafford's aware. And who knows, maybe Kupp gets even more targets than he typically does, which is hard to imagine because he's been super reliable. But yeah, again, another thing to look out for. And something that we didn't quite touch on as well is Matthew Stafford is pretty familiar with the Minnesota Vikings. He was in their division for a really long time. And I know that they obviously have a lot of new players, but he still is somewhat familiar with the team. So, again, another opportunity, another reason that we can expect Matthew Stafford to capitalize. And that's going to kind of lead us into our predictions for the game, our stat predictions, I should say. You bring up Cooper Kupp, and this is something that, you talk about breaking the record and everything. I'm not going to say that the Rams are going to go out of their way to only target Cooper Kupp and do everything they can to make sure he breaks the record. It's obviously team first. However, I do think that Cooper Kupp is going to get a lot of targets, and I expect Cooper Kupp to have a double touchdown game, maybe even 3. Like you mentioned, the Minnesota Vikings give up more fantasy points to any other team to receivers. Cooper Kupp is the fantasy god for receiver this season. So I'm sure that he's going to, if everything goes according to plan, have a pretty good game against the Minnesota Vikings. I also imagine that, the Rams are going to have a couple of interceptions against this game. I could just see if they put the pressure up against Kirk Cousins. To me, I think obviously Justin Jefferson's really talented, Adam Thielen. Other than that, they don't have any other super reliable targets, especially now that Dalvin Cook is gone. I think that there's going to be a couple interceptions for the Rams. Maybe not a lot of sacks. Like I said, I actually kind of like this Minnesota offensive line. I could be wrong. I don't expect a lot of sacks from the Rams. But Jake, do you have any predictions for this game?
Yes. So I'm going to start off with, I think Stafford has a game that, he's not throwing all over the yard like you would expect necessarily. I think he's going to hit around 300 or a little bit below that. But I think Cooper Kupp is probably going to go over 150 in this game. I do think, he'll continue on being the easiest pretty much over on the receiving yards betting pick probably all season long since he's done it so many times. So that's what I have there. For the run game, I think they combine to go over 100 yards on the ground, which isn't saying a ton, but obviously Sony Michel came close to it last week. I think Henderson will be used a little bit more this week as he gets his bearings back. Keep in mind he did have COVID and was dealing with a calf injury, so we'll see about him. And then the defense, I think they'll get to Cousins 4 times. They sacked Russell Wilson 3 times. Cousins isn't as mobile, so I think they get to him 4 times, which would put them in a pretty interesting conversation here because they have 39 sacks on the season, and they're 4th in the league. or fifth in the league. Do you know who's first in the league, Alexis? It's actually the Minnesota Vikings, who have 44. So we'll be interested to see how that goes. The good news is that Rob Havenstein is back, and those 3 sacks last week, or rather this week, since it was just Tuesday, a lot of those can be contributed to the fact that Bobby Evans was at right tackle. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy because they definitely missed either Rob Havenstein or, I would just say, Joseph Noteboom, because he played stellar the week before. But they'll be very happy to start getting healthy again at the on the offensive line. And we haven't gotten any word yet, but I would imagine that Jordan Fuller will probably end up playing. At some point he'll probably clear the protocol. But yeah, I'm really liking the way this game looks for the Rams. I wouldn't say it's a gimme, because the Vikings, they're an interesting team, kind of up and down. They have a lot to play for in this. They're a little bit better as far as time of possession average. So, they do a better job of controlling the clock, albeit, without Dalvin Cook, it seems a little bit unlikely they're going to dominate the time of possession. But, they're 10th in pass offense this season. Really just what it comes down to is they give up the 30th most, total defense as far as, how many yards they give up. They're 29th in pass defense and 27th in run. They have the most sacks and they have the most sack yards, but they don't get a ton of interceptions. They do have a better turnover differential than the Rams. But at the end of the day, I think what it really comes down to is that their defense has been able to, in a way, kind of go more boom or bust, because they'll give up a lot of yards, but then they might get off the field due to, their high sack rate of sacking, 44 times this season. So, they're a team that's very reliant on that big play to come through. And if they can't get pressure on Stafford and they can't sack Stafford, it's going to be hard for them to get the defense off the field.
Well, I think you're right. And that's going to lead us into our score prediction. And what's interesting, because I'm looking at my prediction that I wrote before the season, I predicted the Rams would win this game 31-7, which seems a little extreme. I'm not going to lie. I'm not quite sure what prompted me to predict that blowout. However, I'm not totally convinced that it won't happen. I'm going to change my score prediction to 31-10. But I think that the Vikings defense is just going to have a really hard time against us. If we can capitalize like we have been and like we did last game and play to our full potential, there's really no reason we shouldn't blow the Vikings out. I think, again, they're missing Dalvin Cook, who to me was the biggest threat to our defense. So without him, if we can just do a good job of containing Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, and obviously not letting Kirk Cousins be comfortable, I think that the Rams should have no problem winning this game by a large margin. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, so I'm looking at this game a little bit closer than you are, although I hope you're right. I'm going to say, Kirk Cousins has actually had a pretty damn good season, despite, playing not so great against the Bears. Now, the Rams are 3-point favorites in this game now. Originally, the line was 2.5. I think since Dalvin Cook was pretty much listed as out, it's assumed he's been going by the protocol that he, as an unvaccinated player. So it's assumed that he's unvaccinated, which would make him absolutely zero chance to play. So he would be officially out. There wouldn't even be a doubt about it. So if that's the case, I do think Alexander Mattison is good enough to have a game against, a different type of defense. But the way the Rams are playing right now, the defense has just played so well, as of late. I really don't see him doing much because he's not that much different than some of the running backs that they've gone up against that they've, stifled. So I'm going to say this. I think the Rams, it's going to be a somewhat closer game than what you have, but I don't, in my opinion, but I don't have it being too close. I think the Rams will cover the 3-point spread on the road. The over-under is 49.5. So I'm going to say that this game ends up being 28-20. I think the Rams, they'll score a few touchdowns. I think that they are obviously the better team. And I think, honestly, with them playing at 1 p.m. Eastern time, I honestly noticed that they play so well, it seems like, when they're playing earlier, which would be 10 o'clock their time, in the morning. I just think that they're going to come out and, now that they're getting healthier and everything, they've already shown the heart, but now they're really starting to improve and really put the pieces together, put it all together. So I think they win this game 28-20. And I think they move on to 11-4 on the season, which actually beats last year's record of 10-6 going into week 16.
Well, we'll see. I'm excited for this game. It's airing where I'm at, which I'm really excited about, so I can, watch it without interruption or have to watch it behind on a stream. We'll see. Like I said, I feel good going into this game. I feel like the Rams are going to take care of business. And obviously, we will be back after the game with a recap episode. But until then, guys, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at @Alexis You can follow Jake at JKBogan. And we will be back next week. But until then, guys, stay safe, take care, and go Rams. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and make sure to use code DTR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.